tonight for this episode, I'm just going to go through the comics that I bought and then read. Was going to prepare images and everything, but I injured myself over the weekend at work, and I just don't feel up to it. So once again, these are all independent publishers because that's where it's at these days. I don't have a lot of hope left for Marvel and DC. Every now and then there's a bright spot here and there, and that's the best you can hope for. So anyway, this one of Ghost Machine, a lot of people are saying Redcoat is the best, and it certainly, they all look good. These are a great collection of artists working on these, and Redcoat's is fun. It's pretty cool, but I still go with Gieger as the best of Ghost Machine. So there's a lot of simplicity to it, and what's going on here for this poor bastard and what he's suffered. And you could easily see it as like he looks like a superhero and that sort of thing, but it's very different in this post-apocalyptic world. You think, well, this is more science fiction, and of course science fiction and superheroes go hand in hand quite a bit, all the way from the beginning with Superman and the like. And yet he keeps encountering characters who come across also as supervillains. And so in this issue he does with the electrician, and what does the electrician do? Well, he electrocutes you. And I'm sorry about the glare here on the lighting. Maybe that'll help a little. You gotta have some light. Maybe I can't get rid of that one. Anyway, of course the art is immaculate, and so he has to deal with this nefarious villain, all the while looking for this other mysterious entity that apparently has the same condition as him. You think you're going to have your heart ripped out by what happens to his dog. I'll leave it at that. Because I'm behind. I've already seen the cover for the next issue and whatnot, what goes on there. But there's still elements here you think, well, it's pretty much established itself. He's in this barren wasteland and he's got these abilities. That's both a blessing and a curse, more curse from his viewpoint. And that sort of thing. And that's kind of classic. The old Marvel would introduce you to that with the Hulk and the Thing and the like. And of course the mutants. But the story is expanding. There's other mysterious things going on and villains. And plus, it's all connected in the Ghost Machine universe, and they refer to the war as the Unknown War. And, of course, if you read Redcoat, and you notice that, yes, there's connections there as well as it leads into it. See, you got a scene here noticing it. So, a lot of that is the interest of how the story unfolds, at the same time giving you entertainment enough to keep you interested in the individual issues. And that's how you do that. Of course, you can lay groundwork for a longer story and everything, but you've got to have episodes that keep people interested. I'm not saying it's easy to do, but it's required. And a lot of television shows and stuff where they'll stretch things over an entire season, and the bulk of the episodes is filler. It doesn't really do anything. You're just delaying it to your one idea you had that you don't know how to expand upon. Whereas here, well, Jeff Johns nailing it in these stories, and I'm completely sold on it and looking forward to more. And hopefully there continues to be payoffs. Sooner or later, there's going to be one like, meh. But so far, we're 5 issues in. This is a great series. So cheers for Gieger, that poor suffering guy, and his idiot buddy, and his loyal dog. 2-headed, but still very loyal. Good dog. Good. Meanwhile, Mark Millar, the other guaranteed read in comics, and probably the best writer in the business at the moment, continues after his crossover series that he did, where we thought Nemesis got his just desserts, and he did, but boy, you just can't keep a good villain down. So of course, continuing on with this sort of take on an evil Batman with Nemesis. And oh boy, there's a Lazarus pit in this story. That appears to be the case. And it's obviously a very dark comedy in the case of Nemesis because it's so awful. What are you going to do but laugh at the horrendous nature of it? And he's such this terrible, irredeemable monster. And so it's basically a tour of that, but it's done with the clever stylings that, whoops, better not show that one. It's pretty violent. Mark Millar's writing abilities. And so, boy, how's he going to get out of this? He's completely paralyzed from the injuries he suffered in the previous one. Well, yeah, there's something of a Lazarus pit, but oh boy, there's a catch. It's not quite the same. And so goes through that. But the main thing of this is that he's decided he needs a protege and a sidekick. And you learned that, the killer from Wanted was basically his mentor in the crossover series. And so now that's the deal. He's going to find a Robin to his evil Batman. And that's the purpose of this go-around of Nemesis. I don't know what happened with Image, but I guess Mark Millar decided Dark Horse was better. Up to him. Whatever. Not going to make any difference to me, but yeah, so Mark Millar's books are now published through Dark Horse for the moment. We'll get to Flash Gordon. Hang on. So there's another issue of Nemesis Rogues Gallery. And this one is about him introduced. You get introduced to the kid that's going to be his sidekick, and he's already in trouble. He's a troubled teen, Hey, reminds him of himself, probably going to prison for a long time. But here comes Nemesis and breaks him out, and off they go. And he teaches him the trade. Meanwhile, there's a character that Nemesis wronged in the previous one. He gets recruited, and so that'll go somewhere as well. So you see elements like that rather than just a tour of how awful Nemesis is. Sure, there's a lot of that, but you got to actually have some story to it as well. And Miller delivers on that. So there you go. Now the kid has his outfit. And, I wonder how that'll go. And then there's the other character that you'll meet later. So, had fun with it. Looks like it's going to be a good series, and you can pretty much bank on Mark Millar to deliver in his stories. So another recommend there. These will all be recommends for these titles. So Flash Gordon coming to us from an imprint I was unaware of Mad Cave. Publishing Flash Gordon. Of course, Flash Gordon, decades old character, was originally supposed to be John Carter of Mars. King's Feature wanted a strip that would compete with the popular at the time Buck Rogers serial. And they approached Edgar Rice Burroughs for the rights to do a comic strip version of John Carter, because there was a Tarzan, which is Edgar Rice Burroughs' main success was Tarzan. But they wanted to license the rights to John Carter and do a strip there. Well, they couldn't come to an agreement, so finally they gave up and went to Alexander Raymond, whom I assume was going to be the artist for John Carter. Can you just come up with your own, swashbuckling sci-fi hero? And he said, sure. And he came up with Flash Gordon. So there you go. And, probably the better for it. And the rest is, as they say, history. It was a long-running strip. I don't think they published one the newspaper comic strip is over. And that's unfortunate, but lives on in other media. So there's been several Flash Gordon comics, and you would expect to have the same story. Apparently, there is a digital version that gives a precursor to this story, and I'm like, I just don't like the gimmick, So I haven't looked into it. Suppose maybe the full collection will collect all of it. But basically, Flash Gordon wakes up in prison, and this is sort of like an aftermath story of the overall adventures of Flash Gordon. You know, him, Dale, and Dr. Zarkov go to Mongo. They fight Ming the Merciless and ultimately defeat him. And of course, you continue on with other stories. The movie serials did. But here's a take on it. So the main thing that interested me in it was that Jerry Adams is writing this story. The art's good. It's pretty good in here. But Jerry Adams is one of the bright spots of DC Comics. He did a good job on The Flash. He's doing a pretty good job on Green Lantern if he just wasn't constantly being interrupted with events stories. And so I was impressed with the guy. And so I'm giving this Flash Gordon take a chance. So he's got basically an original story of his own about what's happened to Flash here and all of that. And it's, for the most part, it begins, it's sort of a, you got to get out of this prison deal because he hears that Dale's in trouble. And so that's the lead up for it in that. It does, there's an advertisement for Defenders of the Earth. I guess Mad Cave is going to have a whole, Flash Gordon and the early comic strip heroes type thing. They've done this, before, other entities have. And so you have this story of, Mandrake the Magician, the Phantom, and Flash Gordon teaming up and all that stuff. And they were all these heroes from the old comic strip serials of the old days. And can't say I'm impressed with the art here, but don't know about that. Anyway, they do have these backup in the style of the old Sunday Comics thing here. And it says, after a 2-decade hiatus, the Flash Gordon comic strip is back and available on Comics Kingdom. So I guess it's basically like a web comic now, but they'll print it here. And it's more akin to the classic, although the art is a bit more on the cartoon side, but nevertheless, more of the classic tales of Flash Gordon and that type of thing. So, they're all in on Flash Gordon, so to speak. So far so good. Went ahead and we got the next issue, and obviously the main arc will be to get out of this prison that he finds himself in. And lo and behold, guess who else is there? Well, this is their version of Ming the Merciless. They've made him green, but I guess they don't want to stick because he looked too much like Fu Manchu in the original version. Plus, I do think his skin was actually yellow. Okay, let's make him green and stuff. Okay, so he's more of a villain. He's got pointed ears and all this sort of stuff. More of a alien, rather. He's still the villain, yeah. But it's one of those old tropes. The villain and the hero have to work together because they're both in the same jam, and that's the case. And so Ming say, hey, we gotta make this deal, and it turns out the warden is really, I guess, a gambling addict. So Flash has got to win this tournament in this arena, which is a callback to the old story of Flash Gordon having to battle it out in a gladiatorial contest and stuff like that. And so, oh no, look what he's got to fight. But so far so good. I imagine he'll eventually get out and they'll get back to the plots of Ming the Merciless and whatnot. But so it's looking pretty good for it, and I have been impressed with Jerry Adams. So this might be a good one. Still kind of, jury's still out on it overall compared to the others I'm reading here, but this might be a little special one percolating here. So I'll keep my eye out for Mad Cave's Flash Gordon. So finally, a crossover series for the world and characters of, Robert E. Howard, really, in the case of Conan being the big star, but he's got all these other characters, and there's been crossovers before of a sort. And starting off with the Titan versions of it, all of this surrounding about the mysterious Black Stone, and it crosses the ages, and so you have, for all intents and purposes, an event series, which, yes, sick of those in Marvel and DC, but it seems fresh and new elsewhere, and in this case, seems it fits. So, Savage Sword of Conan has had some Solomon Kane backups, which are actually, in how Titan has done, it doesn't hold up, in my opinion, as good as the regular Conan the Barbarian series they do, which is absolutely the best comic book series you can get today. That's new and published today. But the Savage Sword, I don't know. It's some of it I thought was the printing process doesn't seem to do well for it. It's trying to look like the old Savage Sword of Conan, which was my main introduction to Conan in my days of yore, in my youth. But there, the basic black and white ink work came through, and it was good. Here, it looks rather muddy in Savage Sword of Conan, but the Solomon Kane story looked all right. It looked pretty good. So that was probably the right spot there. If they're able to, you can't really do the shading and stuff that Photoshop can do with a newsprint print, like they did in the old days. I think you need to just keep it bare bones, pen and ink, and go with that. But anyway, so here we have this mysterious black stone. We go through different eras, and there's these guys who, I guess, archaeologists of a sort. They go to this mysterious sort of secret society lodge, and there's this bizarre symbol they don't know. They come across a character who has encountered it and says, you don't want to know anything about this, it's horrible. And then we cut back to the Hyborian age of Conan and his encounters with the Black Stone, which we've already seen in his own series. Then there's this character who is an obvious stand-in for Robert E. Howard himself, and that is suggesting that the influence of the stone is what gave him his vision of these characters and stories that he wrote about. This character I'm not familiar with, but she will play a role in this as well as she encounters this. And then, of course, Solomon Kane shows up, and each one is encountering this symbol and trying to see what it's about. And of course, in Solomon Kane's business, he understands it as a source of evil, and he wants to vanquish all evil in service of God. So, and then it cuts back to the guys at the lodge and whatnot, and they're still pushing to know about this symbol, and he starts telling them what he does know, and then, oh no, and there's all these trophies within the meeting room, and, well, they probably should have left well enough alone. So, and of course, it cuts back more to Conan. And, of course, Conan Germain, he's the Superman of this universe, And so you're more interested in what he's doing. But still, it's a good introduction and setup. And then they all get a vision of this author across time due to the power of the stone. And so all the characters are witnessing this. And now the game is afoot. And it would be interesting, I don't know. Of course, in Conan's own series, through sorcery, he did cross through time and stuff like that. I don't know if they would continue that again here. I suppose it's possible to do it. But it would be interesting if they're able to make a fairly decent narrative of them all battling the same enemy, but they never meet and that kind of thing, But I don't know. Maybe they will. But there you go. So the first event for Titan's line of Conan and Robert E. Howard characters and stories, and I don't know, maybe characters like Solomon Kane will get their own series coming out of it, and more the merrier, because Conan the Barbarian from Titan is as good as it gets, and in spite of the current era, was allowed to be Conan, So there you go. This is probably the best of the batch. Yes, an event series. Who'd have thunk it? Well, when you've got such a good title to begin with, and it doesn't override it, and they craft a narrative that can incredibly lead to something like this, of this mysterious force of evil that Conan has encountered before. So there you go. That's the best here is coming in, and of course Gieger and the Miller's books. Do check those out. I highly recommend them. Hopefully they'll stay good. One can never tell. But if you got no more ideas and you're really ahead, you quit. That's what you do, and you try to do something else. That's for the best. It is. All right. We'll do it again next week. Don't know what I'll do. Probably what I'm going to do. There's a lot of older comics I've been reading, and there's some of these a series on. Of course, I do the Green Goblin stuff, but I've been reading these failed DC Comics sci-fi series, and probably going to do some videos on those. There's one I've already completed, so I can do that. And then a couple others. It's a bit complicated as they cross over with different titles and stuff. But I don't know. I found it interesting, and I'll probably put one of those up next week. I'm not entirely certain, but that's probably what I'll do. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll do another one soon.